is when you're playing against Vi. So I'm really hoping that RA picks that champion up right now, alongside the Wukong.
Interested that BLG didn't just want to go for it. I mean, maybe they just really want this Vi composition. It will instantly be picked up by RA, and Strive with his first foray into the split. RA trying things out at mid lane. Maybe this could be a big boon for them.
Yep, and Leyan locking the Wukong buddy, just lock that in. I think these two champions as a duo in the current meta is so prevalent, because when you do fight for those chokes, it is just constant CC. And BLG, they're most likely going to go back to their roots, where it is going to be Nautilus, Vi, and they're going to consistently dive. So Assum having a really good read on this and picking something like the Rakan and Xayah for this bottom lane is going to deny a lot of those dives. So I like this initiative. It is going to be the classic Syndra counter into the Nico, where she's going to be able to get a lot of the lane party, and that is going to play into Xun's early game aggression.
And you got to remember, this is something that was probably set up completely by BLG. There was bans towards the Syndra when they grabbed the Nico in game number 1 in the second phase. So now they actually get the Jinx for themselves. They'll go with that priority, while we are looking at what RA want to grab for Strive in this first phase.
Is that a Nico jungle?
Could be.
Oh,
nah. Get baited by the hover.
It is just gonna be Rakan for Feather.
Gotta go
which
with
is
the
kind of
lovers
ironic.
duo.
His name's Feather, and they're playing Xayah Rakan.
You just had to go there, didn't you?
I really did. Well, I hope RA has bans out the Nautilus for this final 5th ban, of course, because we already saw that BLG opting into their comfort champions, where if you give over the Nautilus for on, it's gonna be tragedy for this early game, especially with limited lane party coming out of this Nico. But my biggest question is going to be about what Leyan is going to play. We already see the jungler pull getting limited by BLG right now, where it's going to be most likely the Wukong and the Nocturne. So Leyan, maybe he picks up something like the Viego, where it is going to make up for that mid-game damage.
I would love to see a Blitzcrank make its way into this game here now that the Nautilus is gone for on. We do see that Lulu also ban out, so the tried and true champions comboing with the Jinx. We do get Leyen's Viego actually taken off the table here, but there's something that was led through this time around that was not in game number 1, and that is this Nocturne, which could provide a little bit of that initiation that RA were looking for, at least that we were hoping they were looking for.
Yeah, and it does seem like RA is going to go for the Nocturne approach, because Viego has been swapped into the ban. But I'm expecting On to pick something like the Thresh, where it does provide that extra bit of survivability for this Jinx in these team fights. Since RA, their composition, it's kind of like sticking gum into your hair. Once one person attaches, it just you can't get rid of them. So I'm praying that they go for something that is going to be very passive, or at least provide a lot of peel. I wouldn't be surprised if he goes for Blitzcrank, because that's just classic On, as he hovers throughout these two champions. Just lock in the Thresh, come on. No way he locks in the Alistar!
Let's go! Better get your hamburgers ready. I guess maybe not if you're a BLG fan, but man, holy cow, we get the two-horned beast coming through here for On, and maybe another beast in the top lane, as there are still a couple really good blind picks left on the table for Ben.
BLG is not doubling down. They are full sending it with this Alistar as well. So it really does seem like they're going to all in before Assum hits that level 6 that provides the extra bit of survivability for the Xayah. I'm assuming Xiaoxu, maybe something like the Gragas that can disposition Elk in these team fights, is going to be the perfect fit for this composition. But no, it does seem like he's going to play for laning phase and lock in the Sylas as that counter.
That's really good. As well as you get as soon back in the meta when Sylas was picked almost every single game, and Alistar was also like, it's just that unbreakable that becomes so potent for the Sylas. You just become untouchable, really, just as the namesake. So I'm interested now how these lanes will play out. We saw a lot of influence for BLG in game 1 from the solo lanes over towards Xun, but now it's a little bit of that reverse fashion. It's that secondary style we see out of BLG, where they trusted Xun with the Kazakhs in game number 1. Now it's more about a holistic team composition going into RA's adapted style.
Yeah, I'm pretty big fan of the style.
A lot to look forward to in this early game. speaking of, maybe a little bit of level 1 spice.
Something I do want to highlight ever since MSI is I think BLG fans are really top notch because being at the live event myself, they are very vocal, even challenging the T1 fans out there. So that's
I'll say
one of the
RA
biggest
fans
pluses
maybe
for
need to
BLG.
step up a little bit.
Yeah, come on. I'll do it. Alright,
Hey, you know, if we were there, it'd be loud. It'd be loud. But we'll see as RA did not fall for the trap that BLG was setting. Hi, Yumi. I'm glad to see you there in an emote and not on my screen as a champion. And I do especially want to see, now that we get into game number 2, this change in jungle pathing at least. We did see topside starts for both junglers. First look for Xun was in topside, but I wonder if that changes this time around with the compositions that we have.
Yeah, and something very sneaky that just happened on your screen is that On was able to sweep a ward in the middle lane, and Yagao is going to hit level 2 a lot earlier than Strive of one wave. But I'm wondering if Xun is going to look for a level 3 gank once On hits that level 2 and force those summoners out of RA's bottom lane and try to repeat that, because that is something that we see BLG often do, and they want this game done very early on. Looking at this VODS pathing so far.
I want to try to get a snowball, as we know they do so well with. We did have questions, what happens when they get behind, how do they play, but they haven't had to answer those questions just yet. We should see Xiaoxu get a little bit aggressive here into the trade, but Ben stacking up that Meganar bar will be a bit of a tough tussle if Leyan wants to try to get something here. He is still just at level 2. Leyan has hit that level 3. We'll see them go in for the fight. Not expecting Leyan to be there. Xiaoxu getting oh so low, but Ben has no way out of this one as the fear connects. So does RA's first blood.
Classic level 3 gank from the jungle of RA, and that is going to be first blood, like you said, going into Leyan's hands. He's going to look for an invade now. Bin had to burn the TP, but we have Nico moving here first, so I think he just takes this buff away.
I think so as well. Xun gonna actually wrap back around. Maybe he doesn't actually know. So going to answer the gank. They both were unseen. There are plans amidst. The Shadow Council has spoken, and Xun will try to answer to Xiaoxu, but it's a solo from Ben. Giga Ben activated, baby, as Leyan gonna take the fight into Xun, knowing that Ben doesn't have a big health bar, but Meganar is coming up. That could be the difference maker. TP's now coming in as well. Xun tries to go for the vault breaker, but can't get it. Leyan burning that flash. Xun still has his. The burn should do a little bit from this red buff, but tense action in the top side.
And Xun didn't even need to be there for Bin to get that solo kill onto Xiaoxu. I think it could have been a tiny bit cleaner. I think there's going to be a dive though.
They're going to try for it. A lot of minions here. Xun flashes beautifully. Bin just dies outright. Now the fear connects. Couple shots from the tower will make work, and Xun survives! What a monster! And he'll go in for the vault breaker, but he dies. Xiaoxu should survive. Maybe a cannon shot. Not going to be enough. The regeneration is there, and everything coming down to what's going on the top side.
BLG fighting fire with fire, but I think he's gonna come wrap around and look for a sneaky combo onto the ADC.
Double headshot. The zap does not connect on Assum, but they do have a lot of damage here. Elk will flash the blade collar, trying to get a couple auto attacks in, but not enough. It's gonna be close, and Assum gets the kill. The 2v in the way of RA, and Leyan has showed up on flashing away. Feather can't finish off the kill. And RA have shown up in game 2.
What is happening, Mazel? We went from top lane to 2 skirmishes in a row, and then we go to bottom lane, and all summoners burnt from these 2 duos. But I think RA, they look really strong right now with this 4-kill lead. But we need to take another replay of what happened here, because I think Bin, back to my original point, he could have played this a tiny bit cleaner. The last auto went onto a minion, so he had to burn the flash. Look at that one.
Yeah.
It just went onto the caster, and he had to get that trade kill, of course, as Xun wraps around. And they didn't have vision of Leyan taking that red buff or blue buff, but they knew he was there. Bin was taking 2 waves though, so I think they should have just left. But BLG, a team that loves fighting fire with fire, they continue and they ego the dive, and they think they can outplay.
The flashes were so crucial in this one from every single member. Leyan dodging out that vault breaker initially, but able to buy time here. And I think, yes, Leyan goes down. Yes, it is the trade. Shun does end up getting a little bit aggressive under tower. Xiaoxu able to heal out of that one. But it is now about what Xiaoxu does with that. He's 2-1 in the matchup. Now Leyan wants to continuously hover. And I don't think we're going to be looking at bot lane anytime soon unless it's a 2v2 fight.
Yeah, and Leyan's already level 5 while Shun just hit level 5. So I'm assuming this Nocturne is going to hit level 6 very soon after another camp or so. But Yagao's here.
Yeah, he's all by himself. They were spotted out and Leyan goes down.
Look, I'm not too sure about what the Nocturne was thinking there. A little bit too greedy. Another engage from on.
They got a lot of shots. Elk is spun up here and Assum needs to try to get the blade call. He gets a lot of damage down and Assum! It's a trade of the ADCs and we turn into supportal combat. My goodness, both these guys are trying to light a fire. And now Feather gets the engage on. Strive has shown up, making something out of nothing. And On should get locked down, CC'd and taken out by Strive.
Although Leyan got caught in the enemy jungle, RA is able to salvage it by getting their kills onto the BLG bottom lane duo. But this is so much early game aggression and just breaking out the tempo that BLG so desperately need in this early game is a very positive sign for RA. And I think this is their best early game so far. But to be fair, I think RA has never been very weak in the early game. They just tend to throw and go for really bad fights. So with this lead onto Xiaoxu in the top lane, they need to start snowballing this and look for those major objectives.
I know this probably has no relevance with the recent iterations of RA, but when I first came into LPL 2021, I knew RA as the storm in the teacup for me because it was all about chaos all the time. It was when they had iBoy just going in on Tristana's, dodging back and forth, trying to get kills. And I see iterations of that chaos still lend well to the strategy of RA. And right now, this game is chaotic, if it's going to be anything. And I think that's where maybe Leyan at this point thrives as RA go for their first dragon.
Bit of a trade from Xiaoxu in this top lane, but we already see how prominent this Sylas is when you are giving him a lead. I don't think Shun's going to be able to find an angle into him, maybe start the Rift Herald and trade it, but you are not slicing off, but trading off your bottom lane priority for this as well, where Leyan is level 6 now, and we don't have Flash on Elk just quite yet, but they are going to walk away and potentially roam to this as well.
You see the Rift Herald finally going over to BLG, so a little bit of neutral objective action going there. Leyan will actually end up spotting it out at the last second. Just trying to get a little bit of pressure, presence around mid. We have ultis now available, and that paranoia is going to be huge for that initiation factor that we wanted from RA.
I do want Leyan to play more towards his top side because we see that Finn is struggling a little bit in lane where this Gnar had to kind of find his way back into it with a 20 CS deficit. Bot lane, surprisingly, is just winning the 2v2. The biggest difference for me is that Elk took this cleanse, whereas RA's bottom lane, they have 2 combat summoners, so it is making that little bit of a difference. Potential 2v2 on the top side, though. No TPs from the mid laners.
Leyan getting spotted out there on that ward. Won't be clearing that one. The vision game from BLG has been really good, even if they haven't found their big lead just yet. They do sit about 1.5k behind RA, and a lot of that comes through this top lane that Xiaoxu has been doing a really good job of comparatively to last game, right? Like, he got a little bit of resources, and he's consistently strong. Leyan will consistently try to be aggressive towards this matchup.
Shun does have the Rift Herald for this as well, but been so low.
Oh my god. There's the paranoia down. I don't know if they commit to this. They're just going to go for it. The Mega Gnar ulti spell shielded from Leyan. Big combo coming through in the top side.
And that's 2 waves gone for the side of BLG Bin, but they're going to look for more.
It's the cease and desist here on the Xiaoxu. Yagao has shown up. The Scout of the Week goes wide. Mega Death Rocket goes wide. Everything does not connect for BLG. Trying to clear that wave there. At least Strive was there as a response. And Assum and Feather pushing in turret plates and bot side.
BLG is starting to crack in this early game, especially when they aren't able to make a trade-off play in this bottom side, because you already see the items. Assum has that Storm Rays available for winning the previous 2v2s. So this is exactly what we want to see from or a situation that we want to put BLG in. What do they do when they are not ahead in the early game? And this is going to be their biggest challenge yet, although it's only been in week 1. We have said that they've made a lot of development throughout this whole international event, and I'm not going to start doubting just quite yet because these ultimates are online.
Very true, and that's always something you got to watch out for. Also, the Storm Razor is something you got to watch out for Assum has completed that one here as well. The biggest conversation we had coming to this one was, do we see BLG working from behind, and how does that look? Well, now we get an opportunity to see that. They are down about 3,000 gold, and I think they will have a lot of digging out to do if they want to come out of this one, but they have a composition that works well in the team fighting. So now I'm looking at how Leyan makes this early momentum work, because Nocturne, we all know, if you're not super far ahead, late game it gets a lot harder to be impactful.
Exactly that, as we have Shun pathing towards this top side with the ultimate available.
Cease and desist comes through. You got the cease and desist taken away as well, but won't even get a chance to use it from Xiaoxu. Another kill goes over to BLG and topside.
A tiny bit of an overextend from Xiaoxu without that flash available as well, so we need to see more stabilizing out of the top laner of RA, since it's very rare to get early leads up against BLG like this. As we see Leyan maybe potentially looking for a kill onto Yagao. It is going to just die down. But
gotta go answer Bin.
Yeah, gotta go answer Bin. This is 2 waves away from Xiaoxu as well. Leyan
could have the damage here. Meganar still a while off as well, and the hop, skip, and the jump with the flash might just be enough, and Leyan doesn't have the stopping power. Nice little combo here. Actually able to get a decent amount of damage on his stride, but really good stuff from BLG to continue fighting back.
Most definitely, and the dragon is going to be spawning in 20 seconds. However, without that Nocturne ultimate, that is one of their biggest engages gone from the side of RA. So the execution from Xiaoxu and which ultimate he decides to steal in this upcoming fight is going to be very important. He has to make his way down. He does have the Vi ultimate available, so Elk has to position very carefully. Is he gonna even walk down?
Doesn't look like it. We will get the second, or at least BLG's first dragon, but second dragon of the game started up by BLG. I don't know if the contest is actually going to come through. They might just look to collapse on Yagao, who doesn't really have a way out without a flash, and there you go.
Even though BLG are at a 2k deficit, they're the ones that secure the second dragon, while RA kind of getting pushed around by BLG so far. I would have expected Xiaoxu to rotate a little bit earlier. That Vi ultimate has expired now, so bit of a drop-off from RA. They're going to pick up some plates in the mid lane, but I don't think that's worth.
Nice, get a little bit of something. Maybe not going to get as much as they came for with that defensive nature of BLG. See BLG trying to work through some vision around the bottom side of the map, but now it is RA trying to lean through Xiaoxu, lean through Leyan, get at least a continuation of the lead that they have, because I think now that you're getting Feather out onto the map, you have a little bit more of this cohesion with the team. They need to put the pedal to the metal.
Something very interesting is that Elk has a stopwatch at 14 minutes, so RA need to choose their target very carefully. This could potentially be a huge bait by the side of BLG's ADC. But you already see RA setting up that vision perfectly, where it's going to be really hard for Bin to even walk up to his own lane.
Oh, we got the engage here on the Bin. So we're again near Mega Narbar, and Leyan gets his kill, and that's a big pick off in the side lane for RA.
Uh-oh, and we're seeing a repeat of the spring regular split for Bin, where we know that Xiaoxu just has that slight edge when it comes to the individual matchup in the top lane. Especially saving that counter pick with the Sylas as well, and that is going to secure a slight advantage for this Rift Herald, but Shun's going to bully him off.
Maybe they turn around for the Rift Herald. There you go. They're going to start it, but it is out of the leash range. RA wrapping back around to their strong side with Assum coming up from mid. We get this tussle with the 3v3. The paranoia not available. There's a TP coming in from both sides. See who can make first blood here. The grand entrance was actually huge, and it actually looks like On goes down first. So Assum able to get one. Pop Blossom on to 3 members from RA. They're able to wipe the floor with BLG.
A 3-for-0 trade for RA, and they also pick up this Rift Herald. This is exactly what we want to see from this team roster, and they're executing it perfectly with those TPs.
That was actually so huge, and this Nico pick, ever prevalent in the meta, is oh so strong. Strive looking real good on the champion. We get that 3-man backline knock-up, and now Ben overextended again, but he actually gets one back on a feather. And now you actually got Shoot coming in. Big flash trying to get the blade collar. Doesn't kill Ben, but it will be assumed. No, it goes down 650 over to BLG, and On saves the day from the rest of the fight. Here comes Yagao to try to save Shoot. Shoot surviving. Xiaoxu, you've overextended. Shoot survives. Everything used under the beast that is Xiaoxu, and Ben comes up with the big kill.
RA fumbled it. They finally got the lead and the team fight that they so desperately needed. But Bin turns it around, gets that kill onto the enemy team, and Assum flashing in as the Xayah. A little bit too aggressive from this ADC, and they trade another 3 kills over.
RA fumbled the bag. No! Oh man, it feels so bad. But they are still at least in an advantageous position. They're just overextending a little bit. They did get second item completion from a Randuin's for Leyan, so going for survivability to try to still be relevant later on. You see how this fight kicked off though, Kitty?
Yeah, we have the double TP coming out of the solo laners of RA, and Strive getting a really nice flash ultimate onto the backline of BLG, and this is the fight that they needed, getting the Rift Herald as well. I don't think the Rift Herald actually got bumped for this tier 1 tower, so that's perfect. But Leyan just looking a little bit too much onto this Gnar, where they could have just went for the objectives. The kills don't really mean too much at this point. It was Feather dying actually, but this Dragon now spawning in 40 seconds. No flash available on this Nico, so can they repeat the previous team fight is the question.
There's a lot of vision control coming out from BLG here around the back of the pit. The second Dragon, not all that important in all actuality in the grand scheme of things, but both these teams do not want to give up at this point. You got Navori quick blades completed for Assum coming out of the base with the Hex Gates. That's a pretty decent power spike, definitely an item advantage over Elk.
Where's that double stopwatches coming in for the solo laners of RA as well? No summoners available for Elk, so it's going to be really hard for BLG to challenge this third dragon, which is going to be spawning in 5 seconds. So they should just let this go, farm for those waves, let Elk kind of get his items online, because you're more than happy with the Syndra and the Jinx picking up that gold in the side lane.
Just give this objective over. This will be second dragon for RA, making their way towards that dragon's soul. And we'll start getting to the Baron dances here eventually, but it is looking like the RA advantage is being consistently held so far in this game too. A far cry from game number 1, and a much welcome step up to the plate.
Maybe that really is just the difference between Annie and Nico in the meta right now. Since BLG, you know that their most comfortable style is diving in on you, and especially with On playing the Alistar for this game too, it really did seem like the ultimate counter. However, a big problem for RA to deal with is Yagao. He is slowly getting stronger and stronger on this Syndra, now working towards that Shadow Flame as well. So if Assum plays so aggressively like the previous fight where he's flash ulting in as the Xayah, those mistakes can cost them the game.
They absolutely can. It's going to be little moments like that that mean the game. See that second tower in the mid lane for BLG. There's going to be a while, a little bit of a farm fest going on, and I think that with that being said, it definitely favors BLG. Again, I don't know how you're feeling about this tank build for the Nocturne, but it's just, to me, at some point in the game, Nocturne becomes a paranoia pot.
He does just seem like he's going to become a CC bot as we approach later on into the stage. But to be fair, there is a lot of damage. Not from Elk in particular, but from Yagao. And he does have the Randuin's for the second item. So I'm not too sure if that's the purchase for this game. But we are setting up some vision for this Baron. Oh, Feather, get out!
They really want to find a little pick, a little bit of something here to offset the game tempo. Strive was hovering over topside. The minion wave in topside is actually doing pretty well for RA. They're going to crash into mid lane here. The paranoia does come through. Just trying to get the turret, maybe. Actually going to be able to get out of that one without the turret. Strive has come to join and now locking them up here. Shun needs to be a little bit careful, but he does have that Radiant Virtue, so pretty tanky himself. Assum needs to be himself very careful. That cease and desist is right around the corner, but On is getting chopped up into hamburger meat. He does pop that Unbreakable Will, pop Xiaoxu back, but the big grand entrance, re-engage, pop Blossom on a BLG, and it's RA thriving under the pressure that BLG was putting down.
And BLG slowly running out of options as Elk tries to escape with his Hex Gate. We have Strive following very closely, but that's going to be Baron going over to RA in this game too.
Should be a quick cleanup of the objective for them. I think Elk does manage to get executed here. Has come through as Strive, wishing, wanting, waiting. Doesn't get it, but he will get the purple cape from the Baron buff play. We'll see what RA can do with it while we look back at that fight.
Given the wave state, BLG just don't have the opportunities to walk up here as On. There was no follow-up that could connect onto Assum, and playing Alistair into the Zai without that flash as well is just so terrible. I believe On gets a kick onto, not a kick, but a bump onto Xiaoxu. No damage whatsoever from this Jinx just quite yet, and of course the Nocturne Rakan combo coming out of RA and also follow-up from Strive just meant that without the disengage that BLG so desperately need, it's going to be a clean team fight, and also the Baron buff.
And I love that RA are just utilizing this momentum to their advantage. They have a gigantic lead now, almost 7,000 or a little bit over 7,000, and they're getting these item spikes beautifully timed. They're waiting on this third item for Assum, but they also have this Baron buff for 2 minutes to push down side lane turrets.
Yeah, in this fight, I mean, Elk doesn't have any summoner spells, so I'm not too sure if they can even protect any of these tier 2 towers. They just have to play within their own base, and hopefully RA makes an overextending play so they can just slowly kite in the back.
You get a little bit of an engage here, but maybe a bit of an overextension. Xiaoxu is still decently tanky at this point. I think Elk shreds him, but wasn't able to get the damage down, and BLG have to look back bot because they were already losing their inhib tower here. Re-engage from that was a beautiful power unleashed onto Assum. They do get the pick out of the ADC, a big piece, but not the entire puzzle of RA. BLG actually shooting, played pretty aggressively on the back end of that one, while Bin got a side lane turret.
And that's the mistake that BLG needed, just a tiny breather for them to come back into the game. Assum had the ultimate available, but I guess he was just caught off guard with that stun from Yagao, as Bin, like you said, collects that tier 2 tower in the top lane. Just small mistakes like this does allow for BLG to come back into the game, because although Elk is currently 1-4-1, all it takes is one good team fight for this game to turn around, which could be in 11 seconds.
And you're definitely waiting on that third item for Elk for sure. And speaking of third items, Assum has gotten his. Now a third dragon for RA is potentially on the table, utilizing these big item spikes. We'll see if they can pick apart the fight in the way they want to. And they got to try to get pressure through mid. They still have 40 seconds on the Baron buff, and while it's a negative Baron power play right now, it is perfect pressure before this dragon, and it looks like BLG will just seed this one and say, we'll fight you at the soul.
I wouldn't be surprised if Bin just goes Hullbreaker this game, because he is constantly pushing in those side lanes. And RA not really responding to any of these waves in the side, as we see Xiaoxu only managing to back and fix that right up for now. But they didn't get too much done with this Baron buff. We thought this was going to be a huge throw for BLG, but no, after 3 minutes, they were able to kill the entire macro.
It's so close to being positive. No, it's going back the other way. Ends up a negative 101 power play. Sag. It was close.
Something else that's very sad though is that we have a lot of Zhonya's and stopwatches coming up for this next upcoming fight. So both of these teams need to be very careful.
It's a family heirloom at this point.
Ever since 14 minutes, I highlighted that. And it's been 10 minutes, he hasn't used it, and he's died probably 3 times.
It's a really nice stopwatch, all right? He just wants to make sure the moment is right.
Cosmetic stopwatch.
Hey, you never know. Maybe it will be the difference maker as we come into very, very crucial fights here. I will say that GA completed for Leyan unlocks a lot more aggression on these engages for him, and want to see how that's utilized.
Yep, and we do have double summoners available for both of these ADCs for this upcoming fight. No major objectives on the map just quite yet, so BLG going to clear out a lot of the vision that RA desperately need to make plays. I think Strive has had a really excellent game so far, getting a lot of these 3-man ultimates onto the carries of BLG, which has been a huge turning point in this game. But Assum needs to step up his game. He needs to stop getting caught on the Zai where you do have the ultimate available.
We'll be leaning heavily towards this bottom side with Feather and Xiaoxu, trying to push out this mid lane for RA a little bit because they love working from the shadows. They want you to overextend and then they pounce with the paranoia, and BLG just cannot fall for the bait.
BLG is not giving any options over to RA just quite yet, so very patient play from BLG with the Baron also spawning in 1 minute. I'm not too sure how they're going to approach this because we don't have TP on Yagao just quite yet, as he is going to fix the waves on the side alongside Bin. But I think ideally you want to get your hands, or at least a flank as Bin, onto the carries of RA, or at least ult them away from Elk's face so he's able to DPS, because I believe in the previous fight we did have the Rakan and the Nocturne on this Jinx, but he was able to flash away. Just give him a little space to work with, and that's the perfect team fight for you.
We did just see Rabadon's Death Cat come through for Xiaoxu too, so again, the weapons are aligning for RA. It's just these little lulls in momentum. They're waiting for this 2 minutes until the dragon spawns. This Hex Soul would be huge for their composition, let alone the damage it would provide on top of the sticking power. I think that's a really big point that RA have stuck towards this entire game, as you were highlighting in the draft. If they touch you, they are not going away anytime soon, and they've really utilized that.
And BLG has successfully held out for this Jinx to pick up her 3rd item, which is going to be LDR, so she's going to be hurting a lot if you don't get your hands onto her instantly in these team fights. But she has a stopwatch, so hopefully RA doesn't get this go and make a bait play for this upcoming Baron. But they can start it.
Oh wow.
Why?
All right,
I can't talk.
we're
They're starting the Baron.
Why not? Let's see what happens soon, right around the corner. I swear every night I've casted we've had burger flips, but it ain't a flip, it's a smackaroo, as it's RA that pounce on the BLG. They weren't even expecting it. The 5 combo from RA, pressed and delivered.
It wasn't Elk this time, but it was Yagao getting his face bumped around by this composition, and he even had the flash available. You need to be playing with those Syndra stuns and Syndra E's for these team fights to go into your favor. BLG desperately trying to make another macro play, getting this tier 2 tower, but it's going to get stopped by Xiaoxu. 2nd Baron going over to RA now.
And that is something to be proud of for RA. How far we've come, Kitty. The adventures, the journey. That's what it's all about. RA from game 1 to game 2 look like a different animal, and it's looking real good against BLG.
The Wombo combo coming out of RA is just so insanely strong, because you have Yagao getting instantly bursted by Strive on this Nico, and Elk desperately trying to do damage in this team fight, but he has a Nocturne on his face 24/7. So how does BLG really play this fight when they're not front to backing in these given these situations, and also Hex Soul spawning right now?
Very true, and Strive has 10 pages of Magi's in his book. That's pretty good, and RA are just bouncing from objective to objective, just forcing down this dragon. BLG, your past self set this date up. You said, I'll see you in 5 minutes. I don't think that's a date that you wanted. You might have wanted to cancel. As RA, that's BLG trying to pull back, but a big pot blossom yet again. The scatter of the week was actually pretty huge, but Strive goes golden, and now that just means that RA can pick him apart. Elk is the saving grace, but it hits the abduct from Xiaoxu, shuts it down. Everybody's gone from BLG, and RA are pushing us to 3.
And the striving grace of BLG falls down, as the 2nd game is going to get cleanly swept by RA. A huge upset from this team, and exactly what we needed from this for this week.
they will end at least on a better note than they did in their first series. They will make BLG sweat for it. They will push them to a third game and reset the stakes of this best of 3 to end out their week 1 hopes. Both these teams giving it their all, and you gotta love RA coming back to life in the way that they did. We wanted initiation, we wanted direction, and it worked so well from a place of power.
And who would have thought BLG, their first game loss, was going to be up against RA, but all the mistakes that I previously listed wasn't seen in that game, other than Leyan getting a little bit caught in that top side. But all we needed was easy to execute team compositions that had wombo combos and gap close, and that is exactly what RA served us for this game too, with the Nocturne and the Rakan lock-in. And also I think Xiaoxu had a great game alongside Stripe. These two solo laners were really trying to carry in these team fights, and the big question mark for us now is BLG picking this Alistar for game 2. It didn't really feel like it did too much. Even in the laning phase, we had BLG's bottom lane losing the 2v2, so definitely something to reconsider for this team.
And for me, it was the honed chaos from game number 1. Game 1, they threw themselves at the tower and bot lane, and that was the MVP of the first couple fights. This game, they still play with such aggression. They still try to, brew that chaos to some extent. They literally fought across the map as it went down after that first game came through from Leyan. And that's the kind of RA that I feel like sets BLG off of tempo and sets them up for success. So it is about control, and if you don't have that, there are questions raised. But when RA are able to chaotically fight over and over again and force the issue with this Nocturne pick, it also begs some questions of BLG.
Yeah, put BLG out of their comfort zone, force fights 24/7. I mean, to be fair, I think BLG were the ones forcing the fights, but they also were the ones on the receiving end, as we had a lot of them go the wrong direction, like the 2v2 in the bottom lane. It was on engaging as the Alistar, but you're going in as a melee support into another melee support where usually or traditionally the person who engages first loses, and you're going into a Zai where they often found many routes onto the bottom lane of BLG. But we'll take another look at all these damage graphs. I think overall, because bot lane got that advantage early on in the game, they were able to get a lot of that vision control around the objectives, putting BLG on a choke point for that Hextech Soul where they were forced to walk in, and that is not a place that you want to be, especially with Elk finally getting to that 3-item spike, but it was a little bit too late in the game.
You see some of those dips in the gold graph where BLG was fighting back, but can't find the win in the end. Yeah. And now we gotta see, especially like the priority on the Vi. What does that mean? Nico is 100% win rate so far in the series and a big pick in the meta so far. So is that just a first pickable moment for BLG if they stick to blue side? The fact that it made it through first pick and Vi was the first pick for BLG was really questionable for me. And it really showed that this Nico pick, especially the way Strive played it, is looking real good.
Yeah, for sure. I think maybe instead of a Vi, they could have gone for something like the Wukong that we've seen Shun find a lot of success on. But coming into this game 3, it does seem like red side has been the winners for a lot of these games. At least red side for this game too, because I think that counter pick from Xiaoxu with the Silas was a big turning point for this entire draft, as most likely BLG gonna save that counter pick with the red side for Bin in the top lane, because he was definitely struggling a tiny bit when it came to the isolated matchup in the 1v1.
Yeah, the composition needs to come together as a whole. We will see what game number 3 has in store for us. We're going to take a small little break, so don't touch that browser.